Good afternoon and welcome to Captain's Week on Across the Pitch. And today myself, Phil Kennedy, and Darren Woodhead are welcoming an extra special guest. Former Accrington captain Jay Flannery is sitting down to talk to us today. Welcome to the show, Jay.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Darren. Appreciate it.
Yeah, nice to speak to you again, Jay. Thought it'd be a good opportunity to get you on, especially with you being laid up with an injury at the moment. I know you've got a busy lifestyle, but how's it going with the injury?
Good, yeah, good. I'm 3 weeks in from what they call day zero on a hip replacement. So I've had a full hip replacement, Phil. I think I've showed that in some of the images from the operation. So that's a legacy of playing and training so hard for clubs like Accrington.
Some stitch job, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a shark bite.
I imagine that that's probably a pretty common thing where retired footballers after the career may have hip or knee problems. Is that something that a lot of the guys that you played with are also kind of starting to experience?
Yeah, Phil, definitely. I was only speaking to Coley last week, and Coley was telling me he needs his doing, but he's refusing to get it done because of he's had the operation described to him. And then Jimmy come and visits me last week, and Jimmy's explained to me how his knee's gone and he needs his leg realignment. So to be honest, I think what it was, when you think back, the pitches we played on weren't that great. And, you know, a lot of lads, we trained like we played, really. So particularly when you're playing for John and Jimmy, you had to train like you played or you wouldn't get in the team, you know. So
I think it's still the same now, isn't it, Jay?
Yeah, not off.
Well, that was one thing that Callum Johnson was mentioning when we talked to him, is how much better the recovery time is this year on the new pitch, even compared to what it was last year.
Yeah, the new pitch is great, Phil. To be honest, the only thing was my little boy, Coley and John Doom and Jimmy let me little boy kick in with the team before each game. And when they laid the new pitch, Buzzette, the groundsman's made up, and my little boy goes on and twists his knee first game. So there's a downside to the good pitch too.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Now we've got the 20th anniversary of Accrington's first 4 promotions under John Coleman coming up, and of course you were part of that very first one back in 1999-2000. So why don't we start on talking a little bit about that, because I think that's a good starting point for us.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Yeah, well, first and foremost, it was an honour, really. It was an honour to be part of the club on that side. You know, the journey which we went on, which was started back then when Eric appointed John and Jimmy. And it was brilliant for me because John phoned, as soon as he got the job, he phoned me up. He knew my contract was running out to another club I was at. And you know, he gave me a call and he said, would you meet us, me and Eric, and with a view signing and being the club captain? So it was a very special time, really, for me and my family, really, to sign for a great club like Accrington Stanley.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable now, isn't it, Jay, looking back and seeing just how far the club's come from, you know, that original team back 20 years ago. Although, for me, I mean, it was a good team as well, wasn't it? There were some cracking players within that side, wasn't there?
To be honest, Darren, I've got to say, you know, my non-league career, so that was at the back end of my career when I come to Accy, but that's the best side I've played in, and the best club and the best management team, really, only because of the scale of it. No disrespect to clubs I played for, particularly Lancaster. I loved Lancaster. I was there for a long time. But Accrington was like a different level of club. But what was unique about 20 years ago, Phil, was when John and Jimmy were appointed, we effectively signed a new team, because the previous team had just been relegated, and that's when they brought John and Jimmy in. So and Eric backed them, you know, they backed the lads and said, go and sign a team. And effectively, you know, I was one of probably 10 new players at the time. I think it was only Jamie Spear who survived.
It's almost like with Accrington Stanley, there's almost like a BC and an AD, except for BC is before Coleman, and so that 2000 is like that's like year one AD of Accrington Stanley, if you will.
Yeah, I mean it's almost like 50 years of history, and when you think about it, John and Jimmy have been at the helm for 20 years of that. So, they're part of the DNA of the club, really, aren't they? But going back to that side, I mean, there's some of the players within that team I look back and I scratch my head of why they were playing at that level, to be quite honest. Like Mark Shirley and Steve Hollis and some of them, Russell Payne, they were great players, weren't they?
To be honest, I was only sort of reflecting that, and when you obviously kindly invited me to come on, and I was thinking, you'd always think back of so we won the league that year, as you know, but that was a journey in itself. But then it sort of a new team come together, and I'll play a little account in a minute about it didn't gel at first. There was a few challenging moments early doors, but then you get to a stage where the transition kicks in, and I've got to say, John and Jimmy and the way they managed, like 20 years ago, we're talking about, they were doing stuff which people call innovative today. What Guardiola and Klopp are getting what people say about them in terms of psychology and mentality, Coley and Jimmy were doing that 20 years ago. So when you put that shirt on, you played for Accrington and for them too, and obviously for Eric, because Eric was the chairman, the owner. You went out there, every game was, to be honest, every training session was like, you're going to have to do your best and you wanted to do your best for them, because they were they were guys who I used to play against John and Jimmy, then I played with them at a previous club. So to come and play for them as the captain, like I said before, was a great honour, really. But there's no doubt about it. They had a unique approach, and the team they assembled back then. You're right, Darren. You go through the team really. Every player. Mark Brennan in the midfield, and Mark Shirley was getting offered £25,000 go and sign for Bushton and Diamonds by Brian Talbot, and he signed for Accrington. For a lot less than that. But it all come right that season. But I can assure you it didn't start well. It wasn't a great start, really.
No, I mean, just quickly before we move on, I mean, when I look at Mark Shirley, I've seen a lot of wingers on Stanley, and probably when you look at Jordan Clark now, the way he controls the ball and moves, I can see a little bit of Mark Shirley in that, and there's not been many in between in the 20 years between who can actually control the ball, and it just stuck to the feet. It's unbelievable, really.
Well, yeah, to be honest, and I see, and this young Pritchard lad's a good player like that, but I'm going to be biased because it's who you played with him, and even some of our lads, we'd come off the pitch after Mark Shirley had played and go, Jesus, what a player, it was a fantastic player. And the irony was he was from Kirby, where Jimmy and John were from as well. So
right,
good times, a good start for the club, really good introduction.
Yes. So going back to how it all started, and you all got together, obviously assembled the team. You mentioned some teething troubles. I spoke to one of your ex-teammates the other day, Jamie Spear. Jamie's a character, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, he's a legend, Jamie. Legend.
He was very complimentary about you, but he did have a laugh, and he said, there were some people squaring up to each other after games. You and him included, before you had a laugh about it. He mentioned a game at Bamber Bridge where you were almost coming to blows before having a good laugh about it. But he said, obviously, really complimentary. He said you're a great lad and a great player. But
sorry, Dan, what was that last bit?
So
how did it look?
How did it take time to gel? So how did it all come together then, early doors?
Well, again, I'll give the dynamic of the club. Got to give ultimate credit to John and Jimmy, really, because they assembled a team, they got it together. I was only reflecting about some of the unique things about what happened. So we drew at Lincoln the first game away when we battered them, but we couldn't score. I think we just scored one, I think. And then, if I get this right, I think we got beat the next game, or we drew another game, and then we were into the third or fourth game, and Coley come into the changing room and said, right, win or bust game. If you don't win tonight, I'm getting sacked. Now, you've got to put that in the context of where we were all at as a new team. We're thinking it's going to take some time to gel. But for me, I was, apart from me knowing them, John and Jimmy as friends who had died on the pitch for, I was thinking, shit, this is going to. So excuse me for that. This is going to be quite a night.
Yep.
Little did I know that Coley at the start of the season put me on pens, so I didn't think there's any significance to that, apart from us being 1-1 in this game against Kendall. 20 minutes to go, and we get a pen, and I'm put a spot on the ball, thinking Coley's job's on this pen. So, so fortunately for me, it went in. I think Coley come on because Coley was a player manager then.
Yeah,
he come on and scored the third, and we run out 2-1 winners, and then. So the pressure's off. I always remind John now, so I think I saved your job that night, but let's not go back over that, But then we sort of kept on trying to improve that, and then we played Lincoln. Do you remember that game?
Yeah, I remember that game. 10-1.
Was it 10-11? 10-1?
Yeah, 10-1.
Yeah. 10-1, and we come off the pitch and we all looked around and thought, this is some team. It was probably the first time where everything clicked,
Yeah.
So
Gary Williams was on fire then, wasn't he? By that point.
Gary had signed from Coley's old club, Ashton, and made a great contribution. I think his first game was away at Bersco, and I seen him playing. I thought, God, this kid's unbelievable. And of course, Gary got sold on for 60,000, didn't he, to Doncaster, I believe, at the time.
Yeah, right in the middle of the season, which a problem in itself, wasn't it? Yeah.
That's right, it was. Yeah. So the team had gelled at this point. This is sort of coming towards mid-season, really, and we had a lot to do to make up to get back into the promotion places, but fortunately we managed to do it.
Yeah, and the Radcliffe Borough one, I think that was a pivotal game, wasn't it? 3 or 4 games to go, needed to win every game.
Yeah, Radcliffe away, I always remember, I think we had 2-0 down, and I just remember, once again, I know we've mentioned them, but I do remember Mark Shirley he just decided he was going to change the game, and he had that much talent, and sure enough he did. By the time we finished, we were, was it 3-4? Was it 3-2?
Yeah, 3-2. Yeah,
3-2. Yeah. And that was such an important, because literally the run we went on, I think we went on a 17-game run where we didn't get beat. But at the end of the season, the two teams who were in first and second had been there all year, and if we won all our games, we would only match their point tally, which we did. And the day when we won our final game, we were all on the same points, but we had the best goal difference because of the likes of the Lincoln game, and we went up as champions. First time all season we were in the top 2, and we went up as champions.
No, it was a brilliant, couple of weeks. I think I'm following the Radcliffe game. There were 2 bank holiday games, weren't there? Big crowds, and it was special times, weren't they? Yeah. And I think John and Jimmy, they still look back fondly on those, even though they've got the league promotions. They do still look back on those days, don't they? With fond memories.
I think Darren Coley was said, didn't he, at the last promotion? He said, "Is this your best?" And he went, "No, mate, the first was the best." And to be fair, I can understand that. I know John and Jimmy have had a lot of success, but your first is because the first is the unknown. You don't know whether it's going to work, and so that gives them the confidence to go on and build. And by God, they did. They carried on. And like I say, in terms of their attitude and approach to management, no one better. In 20 years, I'd say there's no one better than them two. And then with the addition of John Doolan, John played on our side, by the way.
Yeah. He was injured quite a bit, wasn't he? I think that first season. Yeah.
But John was full of quality. John had more quality than people realised, and and him as an addition to the backroom team now with John and Jimmy, perfect match. So them 3 together, I was made off when John got appointed, because, like I say, he's a quality guy like Jimmy and John, and the 3 of them together are fantastic.
So now, one thing that you did mention a little bit earlier, and of course you just mentioned here that your career went on for 20 years, but of course we're an Accrington show mostly, but I did want to hear a little bit about some of the other clubs that you played with earlier in your career. You had mentioned that Accrington was more towards the end of your career. So where did you get your start with, and what were some of your favorite and maybe least favorite places to play?
Right. Well, Phil. Again, chronologically, I was a late developer, and this frustrates me now in the game where young kids are getting decisions made on them at 16 whether they're good enough or not. So I still find that a frustration now, because I coach a young team myself, and we have the younger cohort in our team, and you give them a chance and they'll develop in a different way. So as a late developer, I was obviously lived in Liverpool. There was no academies then; they just had clubs, and so the outstanding players, effectively the kids who were bigger and stronger than everyone, had a trial at a club, but it was rare, you know. So I left school, I started an apprenticeship, and I was just playing for a local club, and I got picked up to play for the county side, which was Merseyside. And very quickly, I played for Merseyside. We used to play Everton, Liverpool, other counties. And we played Liverpool one day, and again, we got lucky. Me and another guy got asked to come back and train at Melwood. So I spent 3 and 4 months playing training at Melwood for Liverpool for the youth side. This is when Liverpool were.
With that, a lot of the footballers that I've spoken with on the show, where they've said, you know, I'm just glad that I ended up in this place at this time, and the right person saw me, kind of deal.
Yeah, I think you're right. So, but if you think back then, you know, I'm talking sort of, you know, 80s then, a lot of the kids you're talking about and the players, including Jimmy, Coley, John Doolan, our families never had cars. So if you went and ended up training at Liverpool, you made your own way on the bus. So I was training at Melwood, getting the bus after and in an apprenticeship. And then, you know, the reality is, like most kids, it just wasn't going to happen for me. They let me go. I had a trial at Oldham with Joe Royal and Willie Donaghy. And Willie Donaghy's at the club now doing some stuff with the youth team. Ended up at Prescott, played in the North West counties. And then, I'll be honest, I was trying to think of how this worked out for me. I went and did a degree. I was listening to Paul Mullen's podcast. Like Paul, I went in to do a degree. So the football took a bit of a backseat. But when I qualified as an engineer, I then signed for Bamber Bridge out in Lancashire, and they had a good side then. And then we got promotion, and I got signed that season, the end of that season, by Southport, who were managed by Brian Kettle. And the dovetail here was interesting because I got injured, and I went on loan to Carnarvon, and Jimmy Bell was player assistant manager for a few games. So although I played against Jimmy a lot, first time I played with him, and I was there for a few games, and then I had a couple of good games, I think. I got lucky, and then Lancaster come in, and I spent 7 years at Lancaster after that, and they were a great club, Lancaster. I love the club, love the city, love the fans and the people there now. So brilliant people. And then Coley come to play for Lancaster, and Jimmy played at Lancaster with us, and they both played in the team that won the double. Although if you ask Coley, Darren, he'll tell you that he scored all the winning goals, you know. But well, Jimmy played his part, I can tell you that. So there's the history of where I come through. So several clubs at Lancaster, my main club, and then obviously when Coley got the manager's job at Accrington, he phoned me up and he said, "Look, I've got the job. Do you want to meet me?" And I met him with Eric, and we had a good chat. And he I signed there and then. It was a no-brainer, really. You know, the way he described the club and the way Eric was, because Eric was a football man. Eric was some people found. And by the way, Eric had a reputation in football as he sacked his managers on a win. But if you put the effort in and you're a straight talker, there was no one better to play for than Eric. And sure enough, you know, I found him. I used to talk to Eric about everything, about his business. He used to like horses. I wasn't a horseman myself, but cricket. Eric was a very intelligent bloke, you know. But he backed Coley and Jimmy to sign, like myself, Mark Shirley, Mark Brennan, Stevie Hollis. I think John Smith was already there, Gary Williams. So really, that's my story of how I ended up at Accrington.
Yeah, there were some interesting characters behind the scenes in those days, weren't there, Jay? I mean, John Demain, I know his son very well, Gary.
And John,
John was a lovely guy, wasn't he? Phil Terry, he was a character, wasn't he?
Oh, they were brilliant.
Yeah,
you know, I was Frank, I still watch Frank like now. I still see Frank now, you know, and Frank's sort of one of the old boot room, I call him, you know, because he's such a nice guy. But you know what's interesting about what you just said there, Darren? You know, I signed for Accrington in my first season. We had a bit of tragedy in the family because my wife's sister died, unfortunately, of leukemia. And I've got to say, Eric, Coley, Jimmy, John Demain, Phil Terry, Frank Martindale, they were unbelievable. Honestly, they were and it was a tough time, really. So that transcends football for me. They were. It was more. Do you know what I mean? There was that club, my period at the club. It wasn't just football. It was the people, and even going back today and seeing Frank and and the fans. The fans still come up and we have a good rapport. It's a great place.
Nice. It's a shame probably we don't see enough ex-players back there, really. You do see a handful, one or two, and some people are still involved with the game, aren't they? So it's not easy. Like you like say Jonathan Smith and people, so they've got other clubs and they're doing things on a Saturday afternoon, so it's not easy. But it'd be nice to see a few more ex-players back at the club.
Well, I think last year there was it was Coley and Jimmy. Was it the 1000th game? Was it? I think it was. Yeah. So I got in touch with Burnsy, Paul Burns, Jamie, Paul Howarth come along, Mark Brennan come along. So and we presented them with the plaque, with both of the lads with the plaques,
Yeah, I saw that. It was nice.
Which was great. Yeah. Nice so it is. You're all right. It is. And I did bump into Paul. Paul Howarth's got a little thing going now, isn't he? Paul's a great lad. He's a local lad, and Smithy's a good lad. So yeah, you're all right. But I'd always encourage the lads to get back when I see them. I always say, come up and we'll go and watch a game.
Yeah. Going back to the Lancaster days, photograph surfaced this morning of you playing against an illustrious player who Phil will be well aware of in the States. Tell us a bit about that, Jay.
I've heard of that other guy in the picture before, but you told me that he was famous at some point.
I thought you'd like that one with him being over there, with the Beckham impact in America.
Yeah, I mean, really, Beckham, he kind of put the MLS on the map. I'm not a Manchester United fan by any stretch of the imagination, so I was never a David Beckham fan before he came here, but you certainly cannot understate what his impact of the game was. I mean, I'm not sure that I'd be sitting here talking to you right now if David Beckham hadn't come over here, because there just may not have ever been enough interest in the game for it to grow the way it has here.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, that game we played, he was great. His quality was brilliant, but he's just a really nice guy as well, So it was like I say, playing against Beckham. You don't get many chances to play against world class players. And playing against Beckham, he was in his prime then. He wasn't, he was emerging. It was 1997, 98. So he was a top player, So it was great to try and mark him, but I don't think I got near him that day that much.
You mentioned that you were taking pins at one point, so I'm imagining that maybe Beckham might have had a trick or show. So he could have showed you with those pins, huh?
Well, you know what, Phil? He was everything about what he did was quality. His space, his movement, even running. You try and. He was stronger than what you thought. So, yeah, great to share the picture with him. But I do remember when we played Workshop and Chris Waddle played. Do you remember that one, Darren?
Yeah, I remember that one, yes.
And he, what's the name? Coley had an history with Workshop. Him and the manager didn't like each other, and he said, you're not getting beat. Anyway, we were 2-0 up, and he said, that Chris Waddle, make sure, you let him know he's on the pitch. And so every time he got the ball, he got put in the air, more or less. And for about 10 minutes in the second half, he played, and by the time he finished, I think we were 3 or 4-2 down.
I mean, you don't see that as much these days, do you? Where you get a top player, still playing at a lower level. They just seem to, call it a day, don't they?
Yeah, that's right.
I think we had Edgar Davids the other year came. He was playing, can't remember, for Barnet, I think. So you do get one or two, right. But not many.
You do. But I do remember, what about, obviously it wasn't international, but Mark Patterson played for the club, and he was he played in the Premier League, didn't he, Mark Patterson?
He did, yes.
And I always remember him coming into an half time to get beat at Frickley away. And to be honest, Phil, I know Darren may have heard this, but you could only believe this if you've seen it. Jimmy used to load the tray with all the teas and coffees where Jimmy would be putting stuff on, because he'd know Coley'd building himself up to have a little go. And anyway, you get to the point where the tray would hit the ceiling, the tea and coffee would go all over everyone. Juice bottles were thrown at people across the room. with Coley saying that if you don't turn that round, you'll be getting some more at the end. I remember Mark Patterson looking in like shock, saying, "What's that?" And we said, "That's what happens if we go down by a couple of goals. So get used to it."
Even now, if you see him when they get beat, and I see him marching off into that changing room, so sometimes me and my dad just have a chuckle, saying, "Just we won't want to be going in there now." You just do not want to be going in that changing room.
Oh no, it was a very unique experience. Coley and Jimmy when they started, But you know what it was. It come from the right place. It was, we had our moments and we all got emotional and we all wanted to win. But that was ultimately what the impressed on you. You've got to win. You've got to win this game, and you've got to try your best, and you've got to do everything you can. And by the way, Coley and Jimmy were no slouches. They were brilliant footballers themselves. So you knew the game. They knew how what the game was like, what we needed to do to win. So you had that, plus you had their determination to win. Plus, like I say, they were doing man management stuff, which was miles ahead of the time. So yeah, it was a nice catalogue of events going on, and that was every game. So every time you turn up at Accrington, every game was like that. It was intense, it was hard work, but once you won, that was it. There was a lot of good times then on the coach coming back from away games,
Yeah, so you stayed on for the next season, and a little bit into the season after that, but you had the second season up. I think there was only Jamie played more games than you, so you're obviously right at the bedrock of the team. But after that, Jay, what did you keep in football after that? Are you still involved? You mentioned you do some kids training and you're managing.
Yeah.
So are you still involved now?
But what happened? Dan, I got offered I finished at Accrington. I got offered the Bamber Bridge manager's job, and me my wife, obviously, there's another side to all this. We'd be training Tuesday, Thursdays. You go Saturday. You could be away all day from 8 in the morning till sort of 12 at night. Friday night you had to stay in because of the game. Sunday you're recovering. So it was and I moved to Lancashire with my wife, and we had our kids. So it was, to be perfectly honest, it was a big strain on the family playing. So I got offered the manager's job when I retired from Accy, and I said no. A mate of mine was involved, and who took the job, Paul Byram, and he asked me to come in with him. Yeah. So what happened then was I had a few months off, but the bug, you can't get rid of this bug, you see. And then one of the old assistant manager at Lancaster was now the owner of Fleetwood Town, right. And I come out of retirement and I played for Fleetwood for another season, believe it or not.
Right.
But what happened? And we played Accy pre-season, so Coley brought the team up to Fleetwood's ground, Ivory Stadium, I think it's called, and it was like a cup final. There was bodies everywhere. There was last ditch tackles. It was only a pre-season friendly.
Yeah.
So with you mentioning Fleetwood, one of our other co-hosts, Aaron, he's not going to let me not getting away with asking what your opinion is of their current manager.
Well, Joe. Well, to be honest, I played against Joey's dad.
Okay.
Joey Barton Senior.
Yes.
And I went to the Accrington Fleetwood game. I've been twice now. Played them in the cup as well, didn't we? We played them in the cup as well. So I've been twice. It was either at the end of last season or it was the beginning of the season. And I definitely went to the cup match of the week. So I know Joey Barton Senior very well, and I met him at one of those games. And he was a no-nonsense character. You'd be marking him at a corner, and you think nothing of giving you a left hook or a little dig, but all in the context of the game. So you took it and you moved on. So Joey, obviously, what I like about Joey Barton is his story. He was getting released by City, and he asked could he stay on and train when Kevin Keegan was in charge, and he worked that hard that pre-season that Keegan gave him a week-to-week contract, and he ended up getting a career out of it. So, and I know his agent, Bradley Orr, who's a good friend of mine. He's a great guy. So I've got a lot of respect for Joey. I've got a lot of respect for the family, really. It comes from the right place. similar to Coley and Jimmy. I know he's a lot younger than that, but the dad was sort of cut from the same cloth. They wanted to win at all costs, you know. The dad was from Highton and Coley and Jimmy were from Kirby, so quite a big rivalry, I suppose.
Yeah, and they've had to scrap for everything they've got, I suppose, haven't they?
Well, of course, these are working class kids who have done well, you know, and you know, and you know, even to this day, Darren, people will say, you know, Coley's Accrington manager. Coley and Jimmy and John Doolan could go manage in the Premier League. I don't care what anyone says, but they probably never get a chance to. But you go and give them a club, and then you put them in, and they would be able to do it. That's there's nothing. There's not those. They know football more than most, and football hasn't. I know people think it's changed, but fundamentally the game hasn't changed. The way we play it's changed, but the game hasn't changed. It's about getting motivated people and getting them fit and getting them doing the right thing.
Yeah, it's all about getting a chance, isn't it? I suppose. And when you look at Chris Wilder at Sheffield United, I mean, he's come up the hard way, hasn't he? And he's certainly doing okay, isn't he?
Absolutely, and to give these lads a chance, it would happen, but it may not ever happen. It doesn't matter. You know, what they've done for Accrington will always be remembered. It's a wonderful thing, and that loyalty is incredible as well. You know, that's a rare thing. Cole and Jimmy could have went for. I know they went to Rochdale for the time, but there was. You'll know that. I don't know if you remember, Phil. There was big problems at the club. You know, even when Paul Mullen was telling you they had to get Paul off the wage bill to reduce the costs on the club, and John and Jimmy was a similar thing. But you know, what they've done for the club is unbelievable, really. Yeah,
now you're from Liverpool, so one thing that I have to ask you about is whether or not you're excited that it looks like the Reds of Liverpool might finally be winning the Premier League this year, or are you an Everton guy?
Oh, Phil, come on! I'm a season ticket holder at Liverpool. This is a big thing we all share. Jimmy, John, well, not John Doolan. John Doolan's an Evertonian, but the anticipation, you know, of what we're trying to, what looks inevitable now. But it'll be unbelievable. But you know, went to the Champions League final last year in Madrid, and
fantastic!
I go as many games as it can. But again, 30 years and since we've won the title, it's quite incredible, really. Looking forward to that.
Well, what for you is bigger, the Champions League or the Premier League?
Well, it was probably drilled into me that the league's always the best thing to win, because it probably is. Really, but in terms of the occasion and you know, and the cup and the level of it, well, the Champions League is fantastic, isn't it? It's just an amazing thing. To go to Madrid, I took my son, see Liverpool lift the Champions League is incredible. But the reality is that the real job is the league, isn't it? Probably in anyone's profession in the game, the league's everything, isn't it? I suppose, because that's you're the best over the whole year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Champions League is kind of the world championship de facto, if you will. But at the end of the day, especially for Liverpool, you guys have won a few Champions Leagues, and it's just really getting that Premier League at this point. I think that's I think that just about any Liverpool fan right now would say the league is what's on their mind more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it happens, I don't know if you've seen the homecoming when we won the Champions League. It would be something very similar. You know, there's 750,000 people turned out in the city to see the parade of the cup coming back. You know, so it'll be something similar when when we win the league. But Cole and Jimmy, as you know, we talk about it regularly. I speak to the lads every week. You know, I've done that for many years, and part of the agenda is Accy, treating them, you know, having a little wind up with each other, a little bit on work, and then obviously how Liverpool are getting on. So yeah, it's part of it. That's part of our agenda most weeks.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you then is, since you are a season ticket holder and you follow so closely, I mean, everybody, of course, knows, Mane and Salah and Van Dijk, the big names, but who's a guy that, you know, if I'm putting Liverpool on TV, who's a guy that I should watch that maybe isn't somebody that gets a lot of publicity that you think is a standout or a personal favorite of yours?
Well, I've liked them for a long time, and I know there's been some comments made from other managers, but if I can express this in the best way possible, Phil, I wasn't a standout player. I done my job as part of the team. I knew my limitations. Coley was standout. Jimmy was standout. John Doolan, Mark Shirley. I wasn't. So I like Jordan Henderson for that reason. And I think Jordan Henderson and what he does for that team is unbelievable. And I liken it to when you think about Accrington and people say about, that team where we come through, Mark Brennan. Mark Brennan was like, again, he didn't get a good rap really, but when you played alongside him, he did things and would do things like no one would do. But again, Jimmy, John Doolan, these guys, they contributed to teams which, and people say it quite a bit, you can't see unless you're actually in the team. And when you're in the team, you can feel the contribution them guys make, So yeah, in the Liverpool team, Jordan Henderson definitely, but, we had some of those lads with us as well.
Yeah, I think that a lot is lost on how important things that may happen on the training pitch or the locker room or just having that experienced guy that, can kind of knock the other guy in the head and say, well, let's get going is really important if you're going to have a championship team.
Yeah, I think one guy we had last season, last few seasons who we've lost has been in that mould has been Scotty Brown, who Phil's interviewed before. That kind of player, and I know what you mean. They just do the hard work, don't they? And like you did yourself, Jay, and they're invaluable, aren't they? Those type of players.
Well, I Scott's a great example, isn't he? Because I watched, I went a lot, when the League Two title was won, and I thought his contribution was immense. But even after that, he'd come on, wouldn't he? He'd come on sub.
Yeah.
And he's one of those players. He'd come on sub. And again, it's a rare thing. He did a level like he'd been playing all game, and that's hard to do when you come on as a sub. But that's what type of player he was, Scott. So yeah, I was a big admirer of Scott, and some great players. Some of the players actually have had. But we were the first team. We were the team that sort of started the Coley era. But by God, that them players improved over the years. So every time I go, I just I look at. I admire them really. I think what a great. A great standard player, and the way he plays fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent example with Scott because he was just kind of the guy that once he got into the game, you would see that he would be directing traffic and, telling, guys what the formation needed to be. And so much of that is really, over here in American football, the closest that I could put it to is the middle linebacker position on defense is the one that kind of sets the play calls in English football or association football or soccer like we call it over here. That whoever the deep midfielder is to me is kind of that guy setting the formation, directing traffic.
But Phil, back then. That there wasn't such a position, It's that interesting. It wasn't until Makaleli come along that people recognised the importance of that player. But before then, you would play invariably you'd play 4-4-2, and as a centre midfielder, I started as a centre midfielder when I signed for Accrington, ended up playing at the back. You were expected to do the long, short stuff, everything. But then that position emerged, whereas you'd have the Kantes now, you'd have the Makalelis, you'd have that player, Fabinho for Liverpool, he sit in front of that defence and he just mop everything up. And they're now a very, as you said in the States, they're a very valuable position. But that position only emerged, in the modern era. Players who did that, you weren't seen as I did a little bit, Mark Brennan did a little bit. You weren't seen as glamorous. It wasn't recognised as like it is now, but now it's one of the most valuable positions on the pitch,
I think that more and more the folks are starting to recognise that there's a lot more than just whoever the last guy that kicked the ball into the goal was. That I think that a term that we use a lot is the spine, where your deep midfielder and your center backs and your goalkeeper. That's kind of the spine of the team, and then everything else works out from there.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and it starts at the very back. And when I first signed, obviously we had Jay. See, Jamie Spear was an interesting character because JB played in the team which got relegated the year before, but he was that good. When we used to play and go, He's a top goalkeeper, this lad. But the year before, he got relegated. So he got relegated one year and then won the league the next year as a goalkeeper. It's a rare thing, that.
Yeah, he was a real character as well, wasn't he? Around the place.
Oh, he's brilliant, Jamie.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. He's salted here.
Yeah, he's a good kid. Yeah.
What other questions did you have on your list, Darren, that we hadn't got to?
I think I'm done, really, unless Jay's got something else he wants to ask us or discuss.
No, just to be honest, I was just thinking, you think about your time. That day, the day we won the league. And to be honest, Dan, I can't remember, but I know it was full. I think it was near to a full ground. There were several thousand people there that day. Yeah. There was a traditional pitch invasion, Phil.
Yeah.
My wife come with my daughter. The kids were on the pitch. Families were on
I was on it.
People crying. You were on it. As a matter of fact, at the end of the game when everyone dispersed, because we all went into town that night, all the players. And I remember walking to the car with my wife and my daughter. She was only 1 or 2 then. And I had just my shorts and socks on. And some guy come out of the house and he said, "Jay, can I have your kit?" And I said, "Well, I've only got my shorts and socks on." And he went, "I'll have the socks." So I give him my socks and walk back into the ground with no socks, So great, highlight. That's the greatest, really. That was the greatest memory, really, at the club. Apart from the people we will continue to see now who are still there, in terms of achievement and experience, that was the highlight.
Yeah, it's just amazing seeing it seems like every time I turn on the TV there's something new or fresh coat of paint somewhere on the stadium.
Oh, yeah. And it hasn't been easy, has it? You guys know yourselves, it hasn't been easy. There was a transition until Andy come in recently. And and he's created great stability for the club, and he's doing great. Dave Burgess is doing well at the helm. So, the administrative side is really good. So it gives you a good feeling knowing that it's both parts of. Because with Accrington, you always knew that one part was all right, the other side was always a bit questionable, only because of the funds, and you're in the football game. Yeah, you go. The more money you need,
Yeah, it's just where things have changed. Where Accrington was always that club where the financial difficulties were there, and from one season to the next it would be a struggle, and then Andy has really stabilized it to the point where now you're seeing some magazines are calling Accrington the model club in the EFL States.
Yeah. No, it's great, Phil, and he's doing other stuff which people don't see. So, there's food bank stuff going on. There's children coming to the club getting shirts. People don't see that, but I see it, he's another man going to go down in the history of the club. And look, Eric was the man for me, Eric Worley, because, Eric was when he signed me with Coley and that, but Andy's, certainly, contributing his bit to the club in a great way. So it's great to see. And it gives the guys a bit of security because, it's a very insecure business, football. John and Jimmy, for much of the time at the club, they didn't know they were getting paid. There was times when he didn't get paid. Darren, wasn't he?
That. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So Andy still carried on.
And it must be difficult, to motivate players as well in that environment. Must be unbelievable, really.
Well, there's the other bit about which the immeasurable stuff. I remember going when they used to train at the rugby ground, and I remember calling in to see the guys and see John and Jimmy, and I think John Dillon had just started, the lads then, and and I don't think they were getting paid, but they used to they train and they get the dinner, and I remember Jimmy going up to some of the lads and taking a sausage off the plate and putting it on my plate, and he said, "You didn't train well today. I'm taking a sausage off you." And it was used like it created a cohesiveness amongst the team. And and that took the mind off the fact probably that they weren't getting paid that week, and small things that John and Jimmy did during that period, which kept the team going, were incredible. Absolutely, probably one of the greatest things in football. If people only knew the true story.
Yeah, it's difficult to. Somebody made a comment to me this week at work who supports a big club and said, "Oh, you're only getting 2,000 supporters," and I said, "I'm absolutely thrilled to bits with that." I said, It's like doubled our gate being in our home support being in this division. There's kids everywhere in the town with red shirts on, where it used to be Blackburn and Burnley. So
that's right.
It's unbelievable success. It may not look like that from outside to everybody who's looking in, but for people involved who actually know the club, I think it's fantastic times.
And it's going from strength to strength because the ground's getting built, the pitch is getting built, it's getting improved all the time. So, relatively, what Accrington are doing is as good as what any club's doing in the Football League. I don't care what anyone says, with the resources they've got. So credit to everyone involved, really. And like I say, I was just proud to be part of the early days, but lads have gone on to achieve a lot more than me at the club, and it's great to see that John and Jimmy and John Doolan are back in amongst it and doing the business for the club, and a long may it continue.
Yeah, well, those clubs that you were on in the early 2000s are, in my mind, those are the foundation of everything that you see today. And we really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show with us today. Also, I wanted to make sure that we thanked you for taking the time and coming on, and we really appreciate you sitting down and chatting with us here today. Just hope to see the club keep going in the direction it's in. Is what we're hoping for, I think.
No, great, Phil, and thanks for inviting us on, both of you two, Darren. Really appreciate it. It's been nice to spend some time reflecting. So thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Jay.
All right. Thanks, Darren. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, Jay. You have a great day.